welcome back to my channel. I'm CassB and today we're going to be doing an invisible thread tutorial on your sewing machine. Okay, so to get started, first we're going to talk about the order and the thread that we're going to use for our machine. So to begin with, I use this light or mid-weight invisible thread. I get this from an online shop called Walk Sewing. I like to use lightweight or mid-weight because the heavyweight actually ends up being really thick and it shows up on most of your fabrics that you're using, because today we're going to be specifically sewing appliques. So the thick thread, really it does show up, and if the whole point is to be invisible, then you're using the wrong thread anyway. So anywho, instead of using the fishing line version of it, this is lightweight. So the first thing that you really want to keep in mind is that this goes on the top of the sewing machine. So we're going to go ahead and set it up here, and then I'm going to explain why this has to go on the top. And then as soon as I get this threaded through the machine, we're going to talk about the type of thread that needs to go into the bobbin, and then why that order is important. Now that we've got our invisible thread threaded and fed through the top of our machine and threaded through the needle, let's talk about what we're putting in the bobbin thread. So today I'm going to be working with pink fabric, and so you want to just have whatever corresponding thread color that you're working with. So today if we're using pink thread on the underside makes sense because although you're using invisible thread on the top and we're not going to see that at all, it makes sense to have it the same color because you still see the underside, at least most of the time anyway. So this is going to go into the bobbin case. Feed it through just like you normally would. I'm just going to click it into place and then pull it up. Click. I'm going to raise my presser foot and I'm going to hold on to my invisible thread while I hand crank it down. The reason I pulled my presser foot up while I did this process is because the light to mid-weight invisible thread is actually pretty delicate, and so the presser foot itself being stamped onto it can cause it to snap while you're pulling it up. So if you ever experience it snapping during that time, that's probably what's happening to it. It's just delicate. Okay, so now that my machine is threaded up, let's talk about why I put the thread where I did. So I have always tried different combinations of what type of thread and where the placement of it works, and I can't get it to stitch correctly unless it's in this order. And I mean the invisible thread has to be on the top and then the regular weighted thread on the bottom. I don't know really why this is the case, but even adjusting your tension, adjusting your stitch length, which to me usually would mean it would still allow you the opportunity to use clear thread on the bottom as well. It just snaps. I'm not sure exactly why. I've tried adjusting everything. As seamstresses, we are all learning every single day, so let me know if you have a better way to do it. But for now, I find that this works really well. So just keep in mind, invisible thread on the top, regular thread on the bottom. Alright, so next steps for this is we're going to take our applique. This one actually has embroidery and beads on top of it, and I thought that this was a really good example because a lot of people kind of get stumped and are afraid to branch out and use an expensive embellished fabric, but I'm here to tell you it's actually not that hard to work with. So once you cut it out, I'm going to place it down onto my fabric. These are dress pins. They actually have a really small head to it. The reason I use these instead of something like this, although this is easier to actually pull out of your fabric, we're going to be stitching right on top of where our needles are, and it saves on time not having to pull them out every 5 seconds. And having such a small head on this little needle just makes it easier to stitch over. Okay, so before we get started, you're going to go ahead and raise up your presser foot. I just have the regular presser foot that you stitch most things with attached to it. You can take it all the way off if you want to. I just, who cares to do an extra step? You're welcome to leave it there. Another thing that I do to get started is to hold on to the thread just to begin, because instead of back stitching like you normally would, you're just going to start. You're just going to go into it. I want to also mention that sometimes if you notice skipped stitches, You can troubleshoot by adjusting the tension to your thread and also adjusting the stitch length. So just kind of playing around with it can give you lots of reasons why, hey, why isn't it stitching correctly? It's any one of a million things, so just mess with your machine, see what works best. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm holding my thread. You want to keep in mind while you're stitching is just to gently pull and keep it taut depending on the direction that you're going. And the reason you're doing this is so that because your invisible thread is technically plastic, it's almost elastic, so it kind of cinches up on itself. But just giving it a little bit of a guidance, a little bit of taut, then it will make it easier for your applique not to cinch up and look ill-placed. So this is a good stopping point because I want to show you that at this moment, even though my needle is nice and sharp and guides really nicely through in between all the beading and the embellishments that we have, every now and then, just depending on the direction that the needle hits it, sometimes it can get just a little bit sharp in between those beads as you run over them with your presser foot. For when it snaps, that's what happened. So just give it a second, thread it up again, feed it back through, and start just like how you began. You heard me mention the sharpness of the needle. This is very important, and it's pretty key in sewing appliques, especially with embellishments, because you need your needle to be as sharp as possible so that it guides right around and pushes through where your embellishments are. Otherwise, you'll find that even though you're going to break a couple needles doing this with embellishments, you will break a lot less if your needle is sharper. So I had just changed mine, so mine's nice and sharp. So let's get back to it. Alright, so at this point, again, the thread is really gentle, so I'm just very carefully cranking it out to the side. I'm going to go clip my threads, and you can see on the underside, we've got all of our pink thread, because it's the underside. We had pink in our bobbin. At this point, I can also go back in and remove all of these pins. You saw how nicely it just slid right over all those pins, again, because they don't have the big ends on them. So to finish this up, you can definitely see this beveling around the outer edges. This is super normal. You did not do anything wrong. It's because, like I mentioned, the thread is actually plastic, so it's kind of pulling it like this. All you have to do is give it a good press with the head of the iron. Be sure to have your iron shoe on top of it, and it'll make all of that relax. So let's do that, and then we'll be finished up for today. Okay, so now that we're at our ironing board, I'm actually going to turn it to the back side first. I've got my steam turned up all the way, and I've got my iron shoe covering the face of it so that we don't melt anything. I'm going to plug Wall Walk Sewing again, because that's where I got my iron shoe. It's really an inexpensive tool that makes a lot of work way easier. So I definitely recommend getting an iron shoe if you don't have one. Turn it back over. Just pressing it a little bit with my steam. Getting around the edges. And you can definitely see that everything is starting to relax much more. So that's how you sew and stitch and press it to make it look nice and clean. Okay, y'all, that's all for today. I hope you found this video helpful. I'd love to hear your thoughts and suggestions. Of course, leave those in the comment section. And then, of course, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next week.